Larry, Fort Worth Memories Museum and Groups, and YouTube at Fort Worth Memories. And I have a special guest, Rick Irving. There he is. And so Rick and I are going to talk about Horace Carswell's
today's his birthday.
So you start talking and I'm going to start sharing this too.
Okay, today is Horace Carswell's birthday. He was born in July the 18th, 1916 in Fort Worth, Texas. He went to Northside High School and then he went to Texas A&M. He stayed at Texas A&M for a year and then came back to TCU. He finished his degree, he played baseball and he played football at Texas Christian University. And then when Germany invaded Poland in 1940, he joined the Army Air Corps. And
now, for those that don't know who Horace Carswell was, Carswell Air Force Base was named after him.
Yeah. And he's also a Medal of Honor recipient, the highest award that our country gives. And he, hometown guy, that is buried at Oakwood Cemetery.
I did not know that.
And, you know, he died October the 26th, 1944. And we'll talk about that. But he was first buried at a cemetery in China, and then he was buried at an American cemetery in China, and then he was moved to a cemetery in Hawaii. Then he was moved to Rose Hill Cemetery out on East Lancaster. Then he was moved to Carswell Air Force Base.
My God.
And after the base started closing, they moved him to Oakwood, and hopefully this is his final resting place.
So he was moved, what, 6 or 7 times?
Yeah, I think this is the 6th time. And on his headstone that's there, it'd be nice if we could get, somebody could get it changed. It says something about the former grave of Horace Carswell, because I guess he's been moved so many times. But at Oakwood Cemetery, as you drive through the gate, and it's at 700 Grand Avenue in Fort Worth, right off of Northside Drive, a beautiful view of downtown from that cemetery. John Peter Smith, I think, started that cemetery, and he's buried there along with a lot of other of our founding fathers and famous Fort Worth people. There's a black man that you've talked about that was a banker. What was his name?
William Madison McDonald, Gooseneck Bill.
I think that his there's a grave there that I think is his grave.
It's his, but now their only son, who died at a very early age, he has a real tall.
Yeah.
And that really hit hard with Gooseneck Bill. He was close to that son.
So I mean, just to go out to Oakwood is a real treat if you're into Fort Worth history. And they're still burying people out there. You know, they've got some land.
I didn't know they had land left.
They have a lot of fresh graves, but there's actually 3 cemeteries combined there at Oakwood. There's 2 more inside.
Right, I knew that. That's where some of the madams are buried too, isn't it?
I think so.
Not too many years ago, Fanny Porter, I think, they made some group got together and made her. They called me Madam or something. I remember.
A lot of history out there, but Carswell, he went on to become a pilot. He was a B-24 pilot, and on October the 16th in 1944, he and his crew were out in the South China Sea, kind of patrolling. They came up on a fleet, and they made several passes and sunk 2 ships.
Really?
And he got the Distinguished Flying Cross for that. Then that was on October the 16th. On October the 22nd, they were out looking for a fleet, and they found a fleet, and they surprised them. They were flying about 400 feet, and they had a near miss where they almost hit a ship. They circled back. Well, by the time they circled back, there were several destroyers and in this fleet, and they circled back to make another run, and you know, they just got shot up. You know, by
Is that where he got killed?
That's where he got killed, but they were able to sink a tanker, and I think 2 of his engines had gone out. Another one had damage, and he was trying, you know, almost crashing. but he was able to get the plane over the land because they were going to try to make a landing someplace. And one of his crew members, his parachute had gotten all shot up, so he couldn't jump out of the airplane. So once they got over land, Carswell ordered his men to bail out. They bailed out, and he went down. He was still trying to fly, but he crashed into the mountain, killing him and the guy that was with him that had the bad parachute.
Wow.
And that's how he died. And you know, Carswell, Fort Worth Airfield was named Carswell, I think, in 1948. And you know, we honor our heroes, but here's a guy that's been moved all around the country. I went out there earlier in the week, and his plot was, you know, it was kind of overgrown. They do mow out there, but I was telling my grandson Sterling that you met.
Right.
I said, let's go out there and mow. He said, I want to do it. So I took him out there yesterday, and he mowed it and weeded it and blew it and got it looking really presentable for today. So maybe there's some people that want to go out there and honor him.
And I'm going to make a post about it. Didn't he have one child?
He did.
I remember seeing a photo of his wife and his child.
Right.
That was when they brought him back here, I think.
Probably so.
And she was just a plain housewife looking, and the child, it was a boy, wasn't it?
It was a boy.
And he was young.
And I'm not sure where he lives or if he's still alive. There's still some members. One thing that's kind of ironic, not ironic, but his original Medal of Honor that they gave the family is at Texas A&M.
Really?
Not at, I would think they would give it to TCU because that's where he finished his degree at, but they gave it to Texas A&M.
So he finished his degree before he went.
He went in the service, because he finished his degree, I think, in 1939. He played football. You know, he wasn't like a star with Davey O'Brien and that.
But he played for TCU.
He played for TCU.
I've got all those annuals. I'm gonna look him up.
Look him up and see what he was, because I think his wife, I think she went to TCU.
I think so. I'm remembering that story.
Yeah, in the annual, she may be in there. But you know, can you imagine back in World War II? Certainly different than it is now.
Right.
Sometimes I think, and most of the time, the parents just got a telegram. It wasn't a knock on the door, or you know, now we have a whole team of people that go in and make sure the parents and the widow or the widower or the family members are taken care of. If they bring them back to Dover, they go up there and are there whenever they do the transfer of the remains. And then we have all kinds of, you know, safety nets.
Support groups and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I had a guy that does stuff to convert it from the real deal to the movies. And I said, well, everyone, you know, like Pearl Harbor, all these movies that shows the person knocking on the door. He said, that's very, very rare.
Yeah.
He said they get a telegram at best.
And on the internet, I think there's two different, maybe there's a telegram, but I think I'm thinking of somebody else where they actually had a telegram whenever their person got hurt in Vietnam. But yeah, it was just a telegram. And so the parents didn't have any closure because the body was over in China and then it got moved. I don't know if they even
Do they even know if it's the real body?
I don't know if they've done DNA or not, but you know.
So he was originally buried where?
He was buried twice in China. He was buried in one cemetery, then they had an American cemetery.
Who was the one causing the moves? The military?
I guess the military, because then they moved him to a military cemetery in Hawaii. And then they moved him to Fort Worth, to Rose Hill out there? On
Where Lee Harvey is?
Yeah.
Rose Hill, yeah.
Yeah, that's where they moved him. And then Carswell had a little plot out at the base. I've seen it. And they moved him there, but then whenever the base was closing, you know, they thought, what's going to happen to this property? Here's this grave. So they moved him. They've got a little plot, a memorial park. It's got a little monument and then a gravestone and then one to honor him. His parents, they moved his parents there too. So you've got his mom, dad, and Horace right there.
Wow. Yeah, I'm going to research and see what happened to his son, because that would have been 44, 45, and that kid, that photo I saw, he was 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
So, say he was 10, 45, it'd be 55, he'd be 90 years old if he was alive. But he probably just passed maybe 5 or 10 years.
I think there may be a few family members left in the area, because I did some research several years ago with a skipper that was out there then, because he was really into history, and so he sent me some things. I've got to go back and find.
Where did he live in Northside? Do you know the streets or anything?
I had seen the address on the street at one time, but I'll have to go research that. But it wasn't far from Oakwood Cemetery.
Because somebody I'm remembering now said that he was friends with Pinky Chenault back in the day.
Might have been.
And of course Pinky lived over there. They had that feeding trough over there on 25th or whatever that was. But, you know, he's the one that ended up marrying Vivian. And, yeah, but I've heard that Horace Carswell and Pinky, they might have been high school friends.
Because he played high school at Northside, and I think it's 1933, 34, he made the winning touchdown on Armistice Day when they were playing Wichita Falls or something.
And that was at Farrington Field. Because I posted a deal the other day, and we had a big discussion. What was the biggest crowd? And everybody said it was Northside and Pascal, Thanksgiving Day night in 44, but then somebody came on there and said it was Northside and
I think it was Wichita Falls
or Waxahachie, one of those two. They said that was bigger.
Yeah.
But nobody can find out, and I even Googled it and AI'd it, and they said, well, here's the exact score, and there's 3 different scores. They said, who knows?
There's so much history out there that we just can't find out. You know, I'd like to find out about his crew members. What actually happened to them once they parachuted out? Did some of them get injured? You know, China, we were helping China at that time because the Japanese were fighting China too. So
I talked to a guy that wrote a book about the Lincoln assassination, and I said, I've read about halfway, and I said, there's nothing about the assassination. And he said, no, I reached out to the people that was, like the person where he was buried, the people that buried him, and how they were all intertwined. It's kind of neat to look at the other people. In other words, like he said, I think a neat story would be go over and start researching the people in Parkland Hospital that actually worked on Jack Kennedy and Lee Harvey Oswald. There's some of those that the stories are still fresh.
Yeah, some of them are still alive. So.
Oh yeah, because I did a deal on a national thing the other night. It was a conspiracy deal, and I said, because I really believe 1865 and 1963, the government, I think, had both of those presidents killed, and they immediately silenced the John Wilkes Booth as soon as they could catch up with him, and Lee Harvey. But I mean, it's just real. The government had something to do with probably both of them.
And you know, it was interesting as kids to see in real time Lee Harvey Oswald get shot. You know,
but you were actually at Carswell when John Kennedy landed. You and your brother and your mother
when he took off to go to Dallas on the day he got assassinated. So.
Yeah, and you shook his hand or something, didn't you?
We shook his hand and Jackie's. My brother and I. My brother was 6, I was 10. And we'd gone there early. I mean, we were some of the first people there. They just had a rope, you know. And so by the time Kennedy showed up, there was a big crowd. And the limousine stopped, and he and Jackie got out and started shaking hands. And my mother just pushed us right up to I mean, we were already at the rope, but the crowd was pressing in.
This was the day when he was leaving?
This is when he was leaving. He'd spent the night in Fort Worth. And we shook hands with him and Jackie, and that was in 1963. We didn't ever think about a picture being out there anywhere of us.
But there is one, isn't there?
There is one. In 2013, 50 years later, this film producer called my brother and said he's working on a documentary, and he'd read an article that had been written 25 years before that said we shook hands with him, and he wanted to interview us. And so he said, I've got a film clip of Jack Kennedy and Jackie going down that line. See if you can identify where you might be. And I was able to do that.
Yeah, I remember that.
And he had that picture blown up. And then after that kind of sparked my interest, and I went over to the University of Texas at Arlington, where the archives are, and I found a couple other pictures. We don't have an actual picture of us shaking his hand, but we have a picture with us by him, as he was walking.
Did you look at my uncle's collection? Jack White was there that day taking photographs.
I looked at all the stuff they gave me from the Kennedy deals, but I'll go back over there because there probably is a picture of us actually right there shaking hands. But
right. And really, Jack told me, I remember him telling me, he had pictures when they landed and when they took off, but he said you would have thought there'd be a lot more. It was not really that many people.
One of my friends, Jerry Kablik, he was a photographer for the Star Telegram, and he was just a young guy just starting then, and he got kind of in that whole deal whenever Kennedy got assassinated. They had people over there and they were trying to get the film back, and I think that he told me that they chartered a helicopter or something to send him over there or pick him up and bring the film back so they could develop it, because it wasn't like we have now with the internet. So, and Jerry, he had in his office some of the pictures he had taken that day of Kennedy that had been kind of confiscated or something from the government, and he didn't get them back until years later. So
some of those photographs, they never got them back.
Yeah.
The government instantly. I've always wondered how they shot him downtown, and then that movie, the Texan movie theater, there was 14 police cars there in 12 minutes. That seems kind of hokey to me. So how is our other little cemetery doing? Pioneers Rest.
It's doing pretty good. They're going to have a cleanup, I think, not this Saturday, but a week from Saturday. They've had that Fall Fest at Pioneers Rest the last 2 years as a fundraiser, and so it's hopefully can take Sterling in it because they love Sterling because he gets out there and works. So for the cleanup next week.
So you're going to be at the birthday party tomorrow.
I'll be at the birthday party.
And so Don and Jay are going to be there, and then I've heard from some other boxers. I've talked to Charlie Guerin, who's on my board at Larry's Kids, and he talked to Carlos and Michael Crane. We need to figure out a way to honor those boxers. Is there a plaque at the Golden Gloves, Jim?
I don't think
we can do that, and since I'm on that historical board, the lady told me how we do it. She said you'll have to have somebody write the deal.
Yeah, for the historic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I said, well, I've got a friend that can do that. But there ought to be, there's some other way.
We need to do a proclamation, and we can do it through the city.
Right.
Just fill out the paperwork, and whoever we're going. Don Curry, he's a good person.
Well, here's the deal. There's 6 world champions, and they all were at Gorman's Gym. There's no other city in the world, none,
that had that many champions.
No, because it was the 2 Curry brothers, Super Kid, Stevie Cruz, Paulie Ayala,
and
Gene Hatcher,
and
Troy Dorsey. 6 of them. 6 world champions. So for y'all that are listening, if you want to, nobody's getting any younger. Don Curry and Jay Strickland will be at the birthday party tomorrow, and I'm gonna have boxing and Cowtown caps. You can buy one and get them to autograph it. But Don's been coming by every 2 or 3 weeks, and he's sharper than I've seen him in years.
And the boxing in Cowtown, you're going to have that in the fall, you think?
Yes, it's going to be in September.
And we just need to encourage people to come out to boxing in Cowtown.
Yeah.
Because we have all these boxers. We have young boxers, and then we have the boxers that many of us, like Larry and I, remember watching when we were kids and watching, them.
And we just lost Paul Reyes, so he won't be there. He was going to come last year. He said, Larry, he just got out of that rehab. He said, if you want me there, I'll pick Don up. I said, no. And the guy, Sam McNeese, that builds our bikes, he said, I'll go by there, and he picked him up 2 years in a row. But so we don't have Paul, but I'm going to try to get David Gorman's daughter there this year. But we really need to come out. Last year's attendance wasn't very good. And those guys, you know, their stories are something else, you know.
And we've got a lot of good boxers coming up, you know.
I sent Alexis Moniz and Kendrick an invite. Sent Sam Hatton. He said he's coming.
Yeah, they're Kendrick Relaford. You know, his family, his uncles, and I guess his dad. That was like a dynasty of family
the
members who were
Relafords.
boxers.
His uncle that had been in that car wreck, and it affected him mentally, I think. He'd come by when I was over on West 5th. He was a nice guy. There were several of those Relaford boxers, and they were all big, just like Kendrick.
Oh, Kendrick's huge, and he fought professionally.
Yeah,
you know, and did pretty well.
So at the lunch club meetings, Sandy Flowers is there almost every week, and she's excited every time they come to roll call. And now they've got, I think, a man in there too that's in their troop, and so everything I think is going good.
Yeah. You know, for you that don't remember, our Hometown Heroes podcast, we started 3 years ago.
Right here,
July the 12th, we had our first show. Mary Staffel, retired first sergeant from the 301st out at Carswell,
right.
NASJRB. And Larry and I had been talking for years about, hey, we need to get these veterans and these people, first responders, these heroes on. And so we finally pulled the trigger. We did it. We stayed down here for a year. And man,
had Don Graves. We never had, what's his name on the show? What was his name that you used to bring him by?
Oh, Fisk Cannon.
Fisk Cannon.
Yeah, I think Fisk had already died. So, yeah.
But he came by. God, I loved talking to him.
He was a character. He'd been held not just as a prisoner of war, but as a war criminal because he was bombing Japan.
Right.
He stayed. He got shot down, and
he wrote a book.
Yeah, he wrote a book, and just a very interesting guy, great storyteller. One thing he'd be telling these stories, and he'd say, "Well, what happened next?" He said, "Well, here's my book. If you want to find out, you can buy it."
Oh, I like the part he'd say. I'd sitting outside talking to him. It was kind of in the almost winter time, and it's nice and cool. And he'd say, "Come on, Rick, I got to go see my girlfriend at the bank and then at the cafeteria." I mean, I said, "How old are you, Fisk?" And Don Graves is the same way.
Yeah. And Don just turned 100 years old, May the 3rd. We had a big birthday party over in Arlington for him. And then on May the 4th, it was NASCAR. He sang the national anthem at NASCAR. And then he went to Nashville. About 2 years before his 100th birthday, the Fort Worth Air Power Council and the Air Power Foundation had a Patriot Roundup.
No,
it was a music deal over at Joe T's, and they brought some songwriters from Nashville, and they met with Don the day before this event and listened to his stories, and they wrote a song.
Really?
Yeah, they wrote this song, and they sang it there, but part of the deal was they were going to go back to Nashville and record it. And so that didn't happen for a long time. But the week after his birthday, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, he went to Nashville. They got the studio all set up, and I forgot one of the guys that sang it, but something happened to where Lee Greenwood, his schedule got free. He said, "I'm coming over there."
Really?
And so Lee Greenwood and this other guy, they sang this song, and Don was there. I don't know.
What's the name of it? Do you know?
I don't know. I'll have to find out. But Don had to sign a recording contract.
Really?
And they said he was the oldest person to ever sign a recording contract in Nashville.
That's got to be online.
And oh yeah, it is. And then he went Memorial Day. He went up to Washington D.C. with the Gary Sinise Foundation.
Right.
And man, he was all over Washington D.C. So another great patriot, Iwo Jima survivor. He was in the third wave on the first day, and he went in with about 320 or so,
318.
318 of his fellow guys in his company. 36 days later, only about 18 of them walked off.
18 came back.
He was a flamethrower.
And he said none of the officers. It was all.
No, it's all enlisted men.
All enlisted men.
And he'd often told me, you know, that since there weren't any officers, you know, that he couldn't get put in for the Medal of Honor.
Yeah, no.
So
That wasn't that the biggest loss the Marines ever?
it was, yeah, I think so. About 7,000. So
When they first started, they said this is a cakewalk. We're gonna.
They'd been bombing, and the ships had been bombing for weeks, if not months, and they had it softened up. It's just going to take a matter of days.
Mop it up and get on out of there.
Japanese had tunnels all in there, and it was a nightmare.
Same thing the Vietnamese did in Vietnam.
Absolutely. And you know, we've had a lot of great Vietnam veterans on.
Yes.
Just have some remarkable stories because that was a tough war. I mean, it was unpopular. I had a fellow on a double amputee Marine. Early days of Vietnam, 1965, he stepped on a landmine. It was one of those bouncing betties that just cut his legs right off. It killed his lieutenant and another fellow, and two guys behind him. They became amputees too, and he was in the hospital for a long time. They finally got him over to California, and he said that they had on the bus route. They took him in a hospital bus. On the bus route going in, the people were out there, these protesters, throwing feces and urine at the buses, and you know, it's just terrible what our Vietnam veterans went through. Not only a horrible war, but then to come back to an ungrateful nation, and it's taken a lot of time for that healing process. You know, we have these guys coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. And at the airports, they have, you know, welcome home and parades and all.
You can join those, you know.
And with our Vietnam guys, they would say, "Don't wear your uniform," you know, and they'd throw it away because people just, you know, baby killers and everything else.
That was a war for money.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people, Joyce, you're asking about there's no breakfast club or lunch club tomorrow. We're meeting at Rex's Bar and Grill on University at 10 in the morning for the birthday party. So you're welcome to come. What is this person saying? Oh, that's somebody wanting to Google search. Everything else is going good?
Everything's going good.
Real estate business good?
It's picking up. It's doing better. You know, the interest rates
still at 7 or?
Yeah, in the 6s, but yeah, it's still out there. You know, every day there's people buying houses and selling houses. So
is the new base commander out there? Have y'all interviewed him?
Oh yeah. He's
a good guy.
Oh yeah, he's a good guy. He's really in touch with the community, and you might have him on the show sometime. So.
Yeah. I talked to somebody that was an information officer out there, a lady, and she said, "We've got some people that'd like to come on." I said, "Sure, whenever."
Yeah.
I told her at that time, I said, "We can get a hold of Rick and Mary, and we can bring plenty of people here."
And you know, there's so many groups that support the base. There's roll call. You know, we do a lot of things with the base out there. There's the Fort Worth Air Power Council. That's why we were brought into existence back in 1958 to help take care of people at the base, to do, you know, to be able to go to Washington, to vouch for them or go, because sometimes the military can't do things like the civilian population can.
Right.
But we give them a lot of support. There's the Air Power Foundation that helps fund the Fort Worth Air Power Council to do things. There's Holidays and Heroes, and they at Christmas time they have a great Christmas for a lot of the lower enlisted people and their families. Plus on Thanksgiving, Holidays and Heroes, Air Power Foundation, Air Power Council, they have Thanksgiving dinner you know, we have boxes, turkey, about 100 pounds of food. We do it through the Tarrant Area Food Bank. We go down there and pack the food, and then we have a drive-through where we load the food in these people's cars, and it can feed a family for a week.
Yeah, for a while.
But there's a lot of ways that people can get involved out there to help, because you know a lot of those, especially the lower enlisted people, you know, they have to go on food stamps sometimes.
Yeah,
because they just don't get paid.
that's what we were talking about earlier. There's so many families out there that, I mean, I don't see how they make it really.
Yeah, it's just a tough go sometimes.
And but there's a lot of ways you can help if you're interested in helping.
Absolutely.
And so we'll see you tomorrow at Rex's. I'll be over about 9:30. His deal on the website says 11 o'clock, but I'm going to call him when we go off here and make sure they're open at 10, and we're going to get in there at 9:30. But I think it's going to be a good big crowd.
I'm anxious. I haven't been there, and
Oh, it's nice.
I've heard a lot about it.
He spent a bunch of money.
Yeah.
The only TV that I've ever seen that's bigger than his is the one at Jerry's World.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, I mean this thing's huge. The patio will seat 200 or 300.
My goodness. How long has he owned the Old South?
Dave Benson, the guy that I actually collected for, bought it in 1962. It was started in 1958 and it was called Smitty's. And Dave bought it in '62, and it's been in the Benson family ever since.
And back then, it wasn't in its present
No,
location.
no.
It was in the parking lot just
Right.
to the north.
Right.
And it was more of a diner. I mean, they
Right.
didn't have a lot of tables. As
Right.
best I can remember. And that building was like the Tandy Center or something.
Right.
Charles Tandy.
And
had some
then
shops
when
in
they
there.
moved to where they are now, there's a bowling alley upstairs, and yeah.
And they used to have, back in the early 70s, they had a little flea market on the
Yes.
weekends in the parking lot.
Right.
And I was in the Army. I was a medic in the Army, stationed at Fort Sill. I'd come down here because my father was going to set up and sell some stuff at the flea market this Sunday morning. And this guy came by, he bought something. He said, I'm a vendor right over here. I'll come back and get it in a minute. And so I said, okay, we'll hold it for you. Well, a little bit, I heard some people arguing. And they got louder and louder. And all of a sudden, I hear 6 gunshots.
Wow.
I mean, this is Sunday morning at 9:30 in the morning. And these 2 guys were vendors, and they'd been having a feud.
Wow.
Well, this one guy, I think the guy that had bought whatever it was, he pulled out a knife. Well, you know, I've always been told, don't take a knife to a gunfight.
Right.
The other guy pulled out a gun and killed the guy.
Really?
Right there. And I went over there trying to help him, you know, because I just got trained to be a medic, and there wasn't anything I could do. And, you know, the guy, he walked over to the pancake house, and he called the cops and said, I just shot a guy. Well, you know, self-defense. Well, they got him and put him in the police car. Well, you know, then they got an ambulance and put the guy in the ambulance, and his wife that had just saw her husband get killed, she was going crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And so they were going to take her to the hospital, and he walked by with her, and they put her in the police car, and right next to the guy in the seat was a guy, and she went crazier,
Nuts,
you
yeah.
know, I mean, just nuts. But, you know, that was a weird deal. That was in 1973, I think. So that was the first experience I had with somebody getting killed right out there on Sunday morning in the parking lot. But,
Yeah, that was back when we were the Wild West. So Dave had Old South, had one in Haltom City. He built the Japanese Palace. He had the Lone Star drive-ins, the town pump down on University. He was big time. And a nice guy, really a nice guy. That was Rex's daddy.
is that right?
Yeah, and Rex's sister owns Japanese Palace. The Bensons, they've been in there. Like I say, if you pull in that parking lot, it's going into Rex's pocket, either at Old South or at Rex's Bar and Grill.
You know, that's good to see these hometown people
Yes.
that have good, thriving businesses, have a good following. You know, I mean, Old South's open 24 hours a day.
And now there's one in Burleson that closes at 9 or 10 at night, and that one in Burleson, you can get mixed drinks out there. On Sunday they have mimosas or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of, those are the guys that really made Fort Worth. All of those guys that Bo Yell and Yeager and all of those guys that had those old clubs back in the day. I had a lady in the other day that stayed at the Liberator Village.
I remember that.
And she showed me pictures. Every one of those houses were the same. And she said, you can see mine, ours, it didn't have a window air conditioner.
Oh no, we didn't
And
have.
she said it was hotter than Hades.
A lot of people slept outside.
Yeah,
It was
she
so
told me
hot.
that. She said we had a lounge chair and you had to kind of bring it in because somebody would take it. But she said I slept in that thing many a night out there.
Back in the 50s, my cousins lived out there. And I'd go out there, and all those little old houses were just about the same.
They were all the same. I've got pictures of it that my uncle took, and there was a bunch of them. That's what I was telling that when we did that national show. They asked me, why do I think the Allies won? I said, no other country could stand up against our production rate. It was the women.
Yeah.
We built 8 planes to Germany's 1.
Rosie the Riveters.
Yeah.
You know, I got the chance to meet and kind of start an interview with a lady that was in Holland. And she was 4 years old when Germany came in and took the country over. You know, they came into the Netherlands, and in 5 days,
It was
the
over,
Netherlands
yeah.
said it's over. The Germans occupied it. There was a Philips factory there that made electronics, so the Germans took that over. So she suffered all the Allied bombing. They even kept some Jews in their attic for a while. But then there was other people that would come by to stay with them sometime. The Jews had already gone. But this one guy was a German sympathizer. And he found out that her daddy had a little bitty radio where he could really get the news and turn him in. And they took him away. And he went to Germany to prison. And before the end of the war, he escaped, and he and his brother-in-law walked all the way back from Germany down to the lower south end of the Netherlands. But whenever Operation Market Garden, it was, you know, a failure because they didn't capture the last bridge they needed. But their town, being in the very south part, was liberated before the war was over. And so then the Americans were there. And then the Germans were bombing the Americans. So she went through all this stuff. She's in her late 80s now. But just a fascinating story. And then her husband that she later married, she became a missionary to Brazil, and he was a missionary down there. He had been a medic in the Army. He'd made the landing on D-Day, which was his birthday.
Wow.
And then he made another landing in Italy. So can you imagine going through all that as a child?
I had a guy send me it was a deal that some film crew was the first one in to Germany when the war actually was over. Some of the Germans kept fighting, and the soldiers that laid their arms down, Hitler had already killed himself, and so a bunch of them were just trying to get home, and die-hard German guys were shooting them, and when this was where the Americans came in, and it shows pictures of those American GIs. They're using the butt of their rifle hitting those guys.
Yeah, they killed many of those guys, especially the ones that were over the concentration camps whenever they liberated.
Yeah.
She told me too that the Allies came in and liberated the city, and then the civilians went and rounded up as many German sympathizers as they could. They shaved the women's heads and I guess painted something on them, and they were pretty bad to them. I think a lot of them got killed.
Oh no! And in this deal, and it was shot by an American film crew. It showed one of the concentration camps, and this is not the one where Eisenhower said go in that town. This was whoever was in charge of this company said go get those people. There was like 600 of them, and they were like, and it shows it. I mean, I couldn't put it on the group because It's too graphic. I mean, they're saying, "Oh, we did." You know, they were saying we don't know, but they were saying Germany, and those soldiers were going over and slapping the women, and I mean, it was just horrific.
Yeah.
The bodies, I mean, it's horrible. So, you know, and they never could. Really, none of those guys ever. What's his name? The guy that was over the Air Force. He committed suicide, and Hitler supposedly killed himself. They're not really sure about that. It was horrible.
War's horrible.
Yeah, but no, I mean, but they actually took dead aim at eliminating a race.
Yeah.
And that's, you
That's
know,
bad.
that's bad. So,
It's horrible.
what else?
Well, you know, you have done so much for Fort Worth to keep our history alive, and then you're so involved with everything. You know, if there's a benefit or anything to promote something or help people, you're out there and you're helping to promote it. You have these great shows. You have such a huge following on social media, putting the word out. I mean, people wouldn't know a fraction of what they know about Fort Worth and about the history of Fort Worth if it wasn't for you.
Well, that's what we, you know, the first 33 years of my life, I was the opposite side. But yeah, and now the city of Fort Worth, they've said, hey, we appreciate you. And I share the zoo and the botanical gardens, and like the nature center, there's nobody goes out there.
I know it.
And it's the biggest one in the country. And so I try to promote all of it, you know. So we've got so many great things you can come and do right here. You don't have to take a vacation, go to San Antonio or whatever, and plus it's too dang expensive to go anyway. You can go right here and, you know, botanical gardens, Casa Manana, all of these, the water gardens, the train, all of this stuff right here at your backyard.
And we've got the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo.
Fort Worth, and down there, the stockyards is
Cowtown
just
Coliseum.
unbelievable.
You know, the Air Power Foundation on the 31st of this month is going to have a Patriot Roundup, and then, we had one last year, just a nice evening at the Cowtown Coliseum, and it surprised me because we have a sit-down dinner right out there on the dirt, and I thought this is going to be hard to walk on. They packed that, and it's as hard as concrete.
Really?
And this year they're going to have honor Native Americans, you know, because we have a lot of Native Americans that helped win the war.
Sure.
And so we're going to have some tribal dances and just a great evening. You go to the airpowerfoundation.org and find out more about that.
I'll start sharing that. Yeah, I was talking to a fellow the other day that's writing a book about the early day cowboys, and it was the vaqueros. That's who started the vaqueros. Right. And the African Americans. That's the guys that were on the trail drives, and that's why they say, he was telling me, he researched it. Billy the Kid, he spoke fluent Spanish, and that's how he learned. And the Spurs, the vaqueros had them first.
You know, you talk about the African Americans. I had a fellow on the podcast, and his grandfather was a buffalo soldier.
Yes.
But he had been a slave, and then he fought for the Union. He was at Appomattox whenever that happened. Then he became a buffalo soldier, and he's buried right out there in Parker County. But this fellow, he knows so much about history, and especially, I mean, he finally got a plaque to honor his grandfather out there in Parker County. And I'll get him in touch with you, because you know, that's somebody local that had an ancestor that was local, and that fellow, he grew up in Weatherford, and I didn't know all this stuff, but they had a black school in Weatherford, and you know where they went to high school?
I've got pictures of it.
They got bused from Weatherford to Fort Worth to go to the black high school.
Really?
Yeah.
That was the 9th Street High. It was originally called Fort Worth Colored High School, Then it was Fort Worth Colored High School when I am Terrell ran it. It was originally called the 9th Street School.
Yeah. This guy is probably in the 60s and he was getting bussed all the way over.
Unbelievable. That had to take an hour or so to get there.
Oh yeah, an hour to get back. And
Have y'all ever followed up with Dr. Eugene Richardson?
I was thinking about him the other day. He's still alive.
We messaged back and forth during football season.
He was such a nice guy.
After we finished the interview, I just couldn't understand how somebody that had been mistreated so bad loved this country so much.
Yeah, he was a Tuskegee Airman, Dr. Eugene
Richardson Jr.
And just a delightful man. He was so kind, so pleasant to have gone through all the discrimination he went through. So,
you remember when the interview was over, his wife was leaving and we were saying goodbyes, and she said, "Don't think Tom Cruise was the first Top Gun." And I thought, what's that about? And so I started researching it. Until 2004, the United States Air Force Museum discriminated and said, we don't know who was the first ones. 1949. It was the Tuskegee Airmen, and it was one particular guy that went on to fly for Braniff and American, I think. But he absolutely... So somebody called a guy like me and you that does stories and said, go to the Air Force Museum, wait till it's just about to close, and when you see that utility closet, open it up, there's a pillowcase over the trophy, and it had the Tuskegee Airmen. They had it all along. But prior to 2004, it said the first winner's unknown. That's the United States Air Force.
Yep.
They were still discriminating against them in 2003. That's horrible. But no, he was such a wonderful guy. He's a big Eagles fan.
And we spent, Mary and I spent the whole week with him and his wife, and took him to Hope Farm. And
he was such a nice. They were such great people.
Took him out to NAS Jailbreak.
So we figured out, wasn't that he had 2 sons?
I think so.
I was talking to the son in New Jersey, and y'all were talking to the son here
to get him down here.
Yeah, and I kept saying, we're talking about the same guy.
Yep.
And I think he was originally from New Jersey or something, and they had some kind of manufacturing plant, fabrication plant up there that the boy up there ran.
Yeah.
And then the son here lived where?
An airline pilot or something.
He lives in Greenville or somewhere.
Someplace around here.
Pretty close, yeah. But Dr. Richardson was, and he was a school teacher after he, and how you could love a country as much as he did and be treated so terrible. That amazes me how people do that. Because they were mistreated. And if you really saw that, the movie Red Tails, they over-dramatized some parts, but I really did a deep dive, and when some of those white bomber pilots were still alive, they said, "Oh no, we requested them."
Absolutely.
They didn't lose a plane, and this one guy said at the very first, they got the crap airplanes, and then towards the end of the war, they started getting the good stuff.
Well, even the Buffalo Soldier, whenever they would train up at Fort Sill, they would give them the worst weapons. They would give them the worst, old ammunition. And there was some kind of malfunction with the ammunition one day, and it put his eye out. And they wanted to wash him out of the Buffalo Soldiers, and he kept fighting to stay in. But it's because they just gave him the sorry stuff.
Wasn't there a group of those guys here around here?
There might have been.
I read a story somewhere, or no. A guy called me that worked at one time for the Star-Telegram as a janitor or something, African-American guy, that lived over at the Butler Projects, and he had like a diary or something of one of those Buffalo Soldiers. I can't believe it. I think he gave it to me, and I don't know where it is. Or he was going to give it to me. I'm going to have to look. But I know I saw it, so I guess he gave it to me. Yeah. Oh, there's so much history that's...
I watched that show. There's a movie called Race, R-A-C-E. about Jesse Owens in the 1936 Olympics.
Oh yeah, I see. There's a video you can watch.
Yeah, that was a great movie to show, somebody that went to support our country in the Olympics, where Hitler left.
He stormed out.
He stormed out because he would not shake hands with the black man.
No, yeah, he stormed out, and that kind of blew the hell out of the superior race.
4 gold medals.
We were talking the other day when Don came by, Curry, if we had not boycotted the 80 Olympics, there's no telling
how many boxers we'd have had.
But Don was set to go. And Sugar Ray Leonard wouldn't fight him. He retired. Don was the undisputed welterweight champion of the world, held the WBA, WBC, and IBF at the same time, and defended his title 3 or 4 times.
And then Paulie, he had 2 different world championships in 2 different weight classes, didn't he?
Yes. And Gene, you've seen the prayers. His wife's not good. Gene had problems, but then I think that kind of worked out. And now I think she's in hospice. I'm not sure. But I see Gene's posting again. He was the biggest underdog fighting Johnny Bumpus. I was there at the fight. I said, I can't believe this guy won. I used to drink beer with Gene's daddy at the Blue Note. I mean, Gene, we need to figure out a way besides a proclamation. And, Ann Zeta, when she was in city council, she said one time, talking about Mary Keys, well, we can put her picture in the old courthouse. And I said, where? Next to the Gooseneck Bill McDonald? There has to be a way that we can do something more for those boxers. And I'm still disappointed that TCU, they told me they were going to do something with their nursing program. So now I'm talking to Tech High School, because Mary Keys, they need to name a nursing program after her.
Absolutely.
Because she worked for Dr. Charles Harris and Dr. Ransom, the big African-American doctor. And we've had so many of these. We had one of the ladies that was in the 8888, the postal deal. I talked to a lady that followed me because of the Mary Keys deal. And she said, my sister was in that. And she's never gotten back to me. Her sister that was in it's daughters were very knowledgeable about that. They thought it was going to take 2 years, or it was 2 years worth of mail that had stacked up. And these ladies, I think they got it out in 30 days or something.
Time, and they didn't want them to succeed.
Right? No, they tried to deter them.
That's a great movie.
Yes. Was it called 8888?
It might have been.
It was either 8888 or 6666. But they were all African American, and they did the job.
That was before the time of computers.
Oh yeah, they traced down letters, and they said they went and knocked doors. Well, you're off at 5 o'clock. It doesn't matter. Some of them ladies were out there at 10 o'clock at night knocking doors. Is this y'all's piece of mail? That was when people were honest. I talked to a banking guy the other day, and I said, when I was a kid, I remember going to the store with my mother, and they would have a blank draft.
Yeah.
Well, you could put any numbers on there. And so he said, Larry, that's when people were honest.
Yeah, whenever we go to the store, my mom would say, I need a bank draft. And they said, which bank? And they had every bank.
But you could write any number you wanted. And there was no way to call and verify anything.
I mean, and Mama always knew how to float those checks. She
Yeah,
knew that if she wrote a check today and Daddy didn't put the money in the bank till
you had 3 or 4 days.
She'd know how far she could.
Mine did the same. Yeah, they worked on that float, and then when computers and everything, and now you give somebody a check now,
they can.
It's out then.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't even have to go to the bank. I make bank deposits.
Transfer the money.
Yeah, so that's that kind of scares me. They're trying to make all this money, that crypto, whatever, and I ain't into that.
And just in our lifetime, and we aren't that old. Well, we are pretty old.
Yeah.
But, we've seen so many changes in technology, and just in the city of Fort Worth.
I had a phone on our dinner table. I've got so many grandkids, and some of my wife is 21 years younger, so I still got a teenager at home. And I had that phone, and these grandkids are saying, "What is that?" And I said, "It's a telephone." They said, "A telephone?" And then you talk to them about a party line. Y'all had a party on the phone? And I'd say, "No, we had 2 or 3 families shared one line." And they don't have a clue.
For a couple of years in 1982, I lived down in Johnson County out in the country, and we had a party line back then.
Oh, yeah. I think you can still get a party line today, somebody told me. And I don't think it has to be in the same block or anything.
No.
And the people, we lived in Smithfield, and I think them people lived in Haltom City, because you'd pick up the phone, and if somebody was on it, you just, sorry, and hang up and check again. But I'd say, "Hey, get off the dang phone, I need to call somebody." And finally I talked to one of those people, the son, and he said, "Just come on over here, I'm in Haltom City." And so, anyway, I don't know how much it was, but people, they were the greatest generation. They made things work. I remember my good grandfather, they lived over there off Carnation or something in that Riverside area, and there was their house and then their neighbors. Well, when all that's the war and everything, they weren't going to be able to keep both houses, so they pooled their money and stayed in one house, kept one, the other one went away. And then when the war was over and things kind of got better, then they together helped each other getting another house for the. I mean, people just made stuff work. Today we'd never do that stuff.
A lot of people don't even know their neighbors.
Oh, they don't. Yeah, I used to. I bet you did too. I knew which house had a bad dog, or don't go through that guy's yard. He'll come out screaming at you.
Nobody locked their doors.
Nobody locked their doors. And we had one car, and there were so many people. Just put the keys in the floorboard.
Yeah, leave it unlocked.
Yeah. It's so many. Just in our lifetime, you're right. It's changed. One of my sons, who's got IQ of 162, works for Musk in Austin. And they have a think tank. And I said, "What do y'all talk? Just anything." He said, "Dad, you don't want any of your grandkids being a lawyer or a doctor." Why? Because you'll go into a booth and it'll x-ray you and then put your card in. It's going to dispense the medicine. If you need an operation, you'll need, and a lawyer, it'll all be done AI. It's so what I don't understand what people are going to do for a living.
I don't know.
They say, well, that AI will invent new jobs, and I don't know what they could do. I go into my bank that I've been banking with now. I was in there the other day, and that lady said, "How long have you been with this bank?" I said, 5 banks ago. She looked it up. She said, 31 years. I said, it was originally Bank of Commerce downtown.
I forgot all about those banks changing names all the time.
You remember back in the 80s, they didn't even rechange the metal sign. They just put covers over them, because in 6 months it'd be bought by another big outfit. And they didn't want you to have a loan officer. They said, "Oh no, everybody's just got a number." And I said, "Well, I ain't never borrowed no money from you, but I want to be able to talk to somebody about my accounts." And so that's why I stuck with the bank I'm with. It's called Bank of Texas now, and they're in Oklahoma. That's where their offices are, their main offices. So yeah, just to see from the 60s. I mean, we invented stuff to do. If you were lucky enough to go on a vacation, we'd all, "Oh, there's a license plate from Illinois, there's one from California." I mean, that was a big deal.
You know, now, kid, I saw something the other day that said kids now, they don't go outside. But whenever we were growing up, we'd spend the day outside, and our parents would have to make us come in.
Oh yeah, mother would just say, "Y'all get out of here and come back at lunch or when you get hungry."
Yeah.
Now you can't, if you're have a privacy fence, you can't even have a grandkid out in the backyard for fear somebody's going to take him. It's not the way that any of us, I don't think, wanted, but it's so far gone now that I don't see how you can ever come back.
No.
You know, it's the people say the other side, we ought to be all we. But I mean, everything is a controversy. I post something on the group, and why you got that on there? I mean, it's the people just want to have that. There's some groups out there, they just want controversial posts, and I don't allow it.
No.
If all you want to do is argue, go somewhere else.
And that's what I admire about you. I mean, if somebody starts something, they're out of here.
Oh yeah, we've kicked over 24,000 off since we started 12 years ago. 24,000 have been either not accepted or kicked off. You know, because if somebody lives in Africa or New Guinea or Spain and they've never been to the United States and there's no relatives here, I look at all that stuff. Why are they trying to join a Fort Worth hometown group? I just don't do it. And people that block their profile, they're blocked automatically.
Yeah.
And I mean, I understand some people just don't want their information. Little do they know that all of their information's already out there.
Every place.
Everywhere. That I don't know why these companies, Wells Fargo and them, say we had another breach. It's already breached. So this year the bike giveaway is December 13th. You'll be there.
I've got on my calendar.
Our goal is 1,400, and this year we'll go over 20,000 bikes, which is over $1 million worth of bicycles at $50 a bike. So we're having our first board meeting Monday. And Fort Worth, we're at Farrington Field again. So yeah, we hope to have a lot of volunteers. We've gotten the Sid Richardson Foundation's in. All of these. Charlie Guerin got us a lot of different groups in, and we grow bigger every year.
And those bikes go fast. I mean,
they go fast.
They go fast, and it's unbelievable to see all those cars coming in, because it just takes a minute to have everything loaded and have the
4 or 5 hours. We've given away 1,100 bikes.
And we have so many great people that come down there to work.
Yes.
You had 3 former mayors.
This year we're going to have 4. Mayor Barr is going to be there. Mike Moncrief. He loves it. Betsy and Maddie.
Yeah, and they come down there. It's not a photo op.
Oh no.
They come down there and work.
Rook Rollins, the agricultural secretary.
Brooke
Charlie Guerin, he comes down and works.
Manny
Ramirez, he's on the board. Yeah, so we've got a great group.
Michael Crane, he comes down.
Michael Crane, he's been to the last few. So there was a story floating around from 2014. Dr. Chadwell, who was the Eagle Mountain ISD superintendent, his father Jimmy was killed by friendly fire, Fort Worth police officer, 1978. So they lived out in the Eagle Mountain area. When the people came over, distant relatives, to console them, there was a box of stuff that had pictures and all, and it was missing for 35 years. So in 2014, somebody put this box on eBay. And so a Detective Halford finally got a hold of me. Somebody had made mention to them, hey, Jimmy Chadwell's stuff is actually online now. And so they went to eBay, and eBay, with a court order, eBay said, tough, we ain't giving you no information. And so somebody in town said, Larry O'Neill's probably the guy bidding on it. And so it's in that article that we're going to have posted. The Chadwell family and the Fort Worth Police Department said, well, we'll just stop bidding. Well, they didn't get there. And so finally, Detective Halford came over. This is when I was on West 5th. And he said, did you buy one? And I said, yeah. And I said, I hadn't gotten it yet. And I was going to send eBay a deal saying, where's my stuff? And he told me the story. It belonged to that family. And he said, would you be kind enough? And he said, we all knew who your dad and all that stuff. And I said, sure, yeah, y'all. And I said, they haven't sent it. And he said, well, we think with a court order we got that stopped. And so he was leaving, and I said, well, what about my money? This is $2,000, $1,875. And he said, Larry, you're just going to have to eat that. And I said, yeah, that's fine. I ain't got no problem with it. And about 8 days later, a guy calls me on a Thursday and says, you going to be there on Saturday? Yes. Me and my wife want to come see your museum. And they went all through the museum. I didn't know who it was. And then I said, I never did get your name. And he said, Dr. James Chadwell. I said, Chadwell is, and he said, yes, come out to the car. And he gave me all the stuff that I bought.
Did he really?
And another box of stuff. So that doing the right thing is the right way to go.
Absolutely.
You know, and our police officers that Garrett Hull, we've got a memorial in there to him, which you've seen that cloth bag, and when his wife gave me that, I said, "What is that?" And it had his name and his badge number, and it was the shell casings from the 21 bullets for the 21 gun salute. I'd never seen that before.
Mm. You got it here.
Yeah, and Garrett Hall was a great guy. And then who was the one that was in Northside? He helped me with autistic kids. One of the biggest funerals ever. Hispanic guy, you remember? Back from the 80s or 90s. I can't remember his name, but so I sponsored 20 kids that were autistic, and he was part of that PALS gym, the deal with the city that Kendrick was part of too. And so I called him one day, and I said, "Can you help me with trying to get good things for these kids?" And he got them into the TCU games, and just a great guy. A drug dealer killed him out at a meth lab or something. I asked that two of those other cops that were there, and I said, "How did that guy live?" And they said, "Too many cell phones."
Was that the guy that they went to arrest the guy and he shot him?
Yeah.
In the trailer house?
Yes.
Jumped out the window?
Yes.
Went and took somebody else hostage?
Yes. He was an Hispanic guy. I can't remember his name. He was
What-
real popular. It was the biggest, they say, it's the biggest funeral ever in Fort Worth.
You know, it's a shame that we can't remember.
Yeah.
'Cause I worked on that case on the grand jury. They came back with some more evidence. And, you know, so we went through the entire deal.
It was on the outskirts of the county
Yeah,
or
it was
something.
up by, it seemed like it was out by Eagle Mountain Lake
Yes.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was in the trailer house.
Yeah, and he shot through the wall.
Yeah.
And this lady said, "Come on in." And that guy was in that room, and he shot. And somebody, if there's somebody out there that remembers his name, let us know. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's a shame that we can't remember.
His daughter's on my group. Oh yeah, and he was such a nice guy. He would say, so I remember one of our oil guys, a rich guy from Midland, who went to TCU. So I said, "Hey, I found out you got 20 seats right behind the bench." And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "And you sit out in the parking lot, tailgating." And I said, "I've got these kids." And so he said, "Okay." And so they went 2 or 3 of the games. Then the next year, he said, "Hey, I got something planned. Have about 10 of those kids over there with their parents." And that was when I was on West 5th, where that Blue Mesa is. And I said, "Okay." Saturday morning, and I said, and it's parents' weekend. And I said, I called him and I said, "Hey, dude, where you at?" And I said, "These people are here." And he said, "We're rounding the corner," and 4 limousines round up. He made a deal with Butch Lusky, the Elton Luskys. He bought them kids boots, jeans, shirts, hats, took them to, what was that Mexican food name? There's one on 7th Street.
Chewy's?
Chewy's was on North Main. And he took them there, and then they all went to the game and sat right behind the bench. And this officer helped me.
We need to find out his name.
Yeah. What is his name? Somebody knows, let us know. I'm looking at the... What is his name? How would you look that up? Officer that was... he was a Spanish guy. Hold on, people. Bear with us. I think I can find it here. Where's Kevin Foster when you need him?
You know, something to try to find out, you can't find out.
I can't. I'm looking at fallen officers in Fort Worth list, and you can't get nothing. Google's not what it used to be. Let's send Bud Kennedy in. Bud's usually on. Nope. That's gonna bug me the rest of the day.
I know it. But anyway, he was, you know, just gunned down, and it was horrible.
God, it's right on the tip of my tongue. I was on West 5th, and we had to close the doors. I mean, there was a traffic jam everywhere. And they buried him, I think, at Greenwood. They did bury him at Greenwood.
Hank Nava.
Hank Nava, that's it.
Hank Nava.
Yeah.
December 1st, 2005.
Hank Nava. Yeah, exactly. What a great guy he was. And when I first called him about that, those autistic kids, he said, let's go. What do we need? And then I got several business people involved, and man, he had all kinds of programs for those kids. Hank Nava, yeah. Henry Nava, or Hank
And
Nava.
those police, you know, a lot of them are so involved in things to help the kids, like you mentioned the PAL, the Police Athletic League. You know, they've got all kinds of things besides boxing. They've got those gyms.
Oh, yeah.
And those they keep those kids focused on good stuff and get them off the street.
You know, 2 or 3 years ago, we did a drive here to get stuffed animals we gave 500 to the police, 500 to the fire, and we raised 1,500 of them, so that when they went out and there was a child if there was a shooting or something, they could give that stuffed animal. And we had them individually shrink wrapped, and that really went over good, you know, because police go out to these incidents that maybe one of the parents is injured and the other parent's going to jail, and there's the kiddo, you know. We just don't, the pain that we inflict on our children. And
But then there's people like you and Larry's kids that bring a smile
at least one day a
and
year.
a memory of going down there and getting a bicycle.
I had a gentleman call me about March or April, and he's going to be involved, and he said, you gave me a bike when you were downtown. He thought I was in the Firestone, but we were next to it. But I think we used to give the bikes out there. And he said it was in 1992, and I said, yeah. And he said, I'm not married, but I've got money. I'm going to go buy 5 or 6 bikes, and can I help you? And I said, sure. And I said, do you have a photo? Or anything? He said, I got a photo with you and me together. And I said, bring it. From 1992. So 92, 02, 12, 22, 30 something years ago.
Man.
He said, it's the only bike I ever had. And he said, I kept it forever. He said, and finally I just quit riding the bike. But, you know, it's just, stop and think about it. I'd never thought that I could say we've given away $1 million worth of bicycles. That's a lot of bikes.
That's a lot of donors that have helped, because, you know, you're at the forefront of it. You're the one, the catalyst of it all. But then we have thousands of people.
All those years, the car dealers, the Jack Williams, Charlie Hillards, the McDavid brothers, Dub Shaw, all of them, they all gave. The guy that was out on 35 had the Dodge dealership. I think his name was Adams. And then all the used car guys on Lancaster.
And the labor union out at Lockheed.
Oh yeah, they're big. They've been with me for years and years. And in fact, Paul Black, the president of that union, retired last year. But when we went out there and got there, it was almost 100 bikes. He introduced us to the new people. And so, like Kyle's son, you met Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle's son, Jackson, started helping me when he was 8 years old. He's a sophomore at A&M. And next year, 40th anniversary, I'm going to put him on the board. And it's time we let some of these younger guys get in there.
We want to keep it going.
Keep it going, yeah, because for the last few years, the All Saints baseball kids are the ones that actually move those bikes. Last year, they moved 1,150 bikes. That's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
And Fort Worth ISD, they do such a great, they charge us then when I'm signing up for the next year, they say, hey, and we zero out the last year. It's just, everybody pitches in. And now we've had the mayors there, different politicians, different business people, Sid Richardson Foundation's in it. The Charlie Garen's told me that the Walmart people this year are going to be big in it. So it's just, it's amazing. Richard Carr was the first individual to write a check for $5,000 for Larry's kids.
And I bet some of these companies where you buy the bicycles, Academy and Walmart, their main office is probably looking at them and saying, man, y'all sell a lot of bicycles in Fort Worth. What's the deal?
It's all from Academy on Cherry Lane. The guy's name is Kevin, and we bought over the years several thousand bikes. And so our biggest problem nowadays is not money, it's the storage. It takes thousands of square foot of...
Because you're already taking bikes in.
Oh, I've already got 50 over there in the detail area. So we reached out, the comptroller reached out and said, Kevin, the nonprofit is going to buy 1,000 bikes this year from you, and we're ready to buy them, send you the money. We don't want the bikes now, though. And we don't need them till like the second week or first week of December. But it's the same problem. And he explained to her, tell Larry, those bikes come in boxed.
Unassembled.
And so then I have to get these people to come in and build them. And that's why I always tell y'all, when we call and say 400 are ready, you need, within 24 hours, I want them out of here. So storage is a big problem. But then the other day, a guy came in and said, Larry, go across the street, Union Pacific Railroad. He said those railroads are always willing to help. And he said those railroad cars will store a lot of bikes. And they got security. So I'm going to reach out to them. Because the Farrington, the ISD that leases all of the properties, they said the west side bleachers, there's a huge area down there, but it's just... Yeah, but it's chain link fence with a gate. Well, you put 500 bikes in there, they're going to be gone.
Yeah.
So
have security.
Yeah, to pay security. Last year was the first year we actually paid police officers in years. But since we had money, I told Kyle and the comptroller, I said, these guys have always just done it for free. Let's pay them. And we did. For years, Manny Ramirez had I'll have 4 or 5 officers. You remember that one year?
We did the toilet paper giveaway across the street.
Pat Green was involved in that.
Manny had the people there to direct.
We had 9 giveaways that year. That's just the city coming together. Fort Worth helping Fort Worth. And I had a call from a lady over in Hearst. She said, my son's father passed away. We're on, short time, short money, but we live in Hearst. I said, if you're in Tarrant County, you're good.
Yeah.
Come on. And so this year's goal is 1,400 bikes. And to date, we've given away 19,550 bikes.
It'll break 20,000.
We'll break 20,000, which will go over $1 million worth. And then plus toys and helmets and so, but I want to see it go scholarships like the Optimist Club to TCC and welding schools and stuff, because I think it's going to get big. And it'll go on forever. And at the start, you've been there, I've always said, this is for you, Pop. Because when I was a kid, I asked for a bike and he broke my jaw. And my bone was sticking out. He wouldn't let my mother take me to the hospital till he got drunk and passed out. And so, always dedicated to him. But you know, it's all about the kids. They're our future, and it's time that we turn over. One thing about the Trump administration, he's appointed a lot of young people.
Yep.
We've got too many old fuddy-duddies. I mean, if you're over 60, I don't think you ought to be able to run for anything. You know, really. I mean, they talk about Biden, he doesn't know what planet he's on. Well, sometimes Trump doesn't know what planet he's on.
Especially if you're over 60 and you've been there since you were 25.
Oh, yeah. If you've been in office 40 years, it's a horrible deal. So we need to start doing a show, bring Mary back on like once a month or something. Yeah. And, but y'all have had some great guests over the years. The guys that had the vehicles that they equipped with the lifts and for the wheelchairs.
We just Tuesday, we gave a quad amputee, no hands, no feet, a truck in Washington D.C. at Walter Reed.
Wow!
And we outfitted it so he can drive it.
Wow!
You know, that's unbelievable.
Who is the Gold Star father, Terry?
Terry Burgess.
He's on my group, active a lot.
Yeah, and I do the Gold Star Parents Retreat every year.
Yeah.
And, you know, bring these parents from around the country that have lost their children, and we have a weekend retreat. And it's not about, you know, classes or anything. It's just a time they can get together, they can love on each other, and they can just be with other people that have gone through the same sorrow as they have.
Yeah, there's so many great organizations out there, and I give away that Fort Worth Memories Good Neighbor Award, and I always put LTV Rise, Paige Charbonneau.
Yeah.
I had no idea she's in her 30s.
I know it. Yeah.
I thought she was at least 40-something.
You know, her husband, Jason, I think he just got on the board at the stock show.
Yeah.
So.
And he was celebrating her birthday, and I said, this can't be the same lady. She's 34 years old.
Young.
But she has made such a difference out there.
She has.
And I mean, that's private and public and the cities working together.
Yep.
That's what it is, and that's why we all need to start getting together and quit all this in-house arguing and bickering.
Because we got so many great groups, so many people, just like the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo.
Yes.
You can't imagine how much money they give out for scholarships and you know, awards. You know, that auction they have, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, they just did.
$300,000 and $400,000, and you know, I had the opportunity this year to work for the stock show, and I was down there for the whole thing taking pictures. And at that auction, I was taking pictures of the kids after they sold their cow or their steer or whatever, and brought it in, had their picture made, and then they take it around the corner to the processor that's going to go, you know, take the cow to slaughter. And so I have those pictures of these kids, and man, sometimes it was the parents that had the most tears. And we had a lady there with a box of Kleenex because there was a lot of tears.
Sure.
Because they had raised that steer since it was a little bitty,
right?
Knowing that this day would come, you know, and they had to take the halter off and walk back through. And
yeah, it's that's what I tell people at the bike giveaway. Bring a handkerchief or Kleenex because there's no dry eyes out there. It's hard to believe that we allow some people to live the way they do and we don't give them any help. And you know, that's like I was asking a couple of the politicians that I recently interviewed. We made a deal about no panhandling. Well, so that just drives them to steal. Where are they going to get any money? When you don't have any money, you do whatever it is to live. You're not going to starve to death. So, and there's so many people with so much money. They always talk about the homeless problem, and I always say, I can fix it overnight. Move Salvation Army, Presbyterian Night Shelter, 6333 Camp Bowie, it'll be solved tomorrow.
yeah,
It's out of sight, out of mind. We don't, and you know, I talked to a couple the other day that came in here from North Carolina or South Carolina. We think there's poverty here. The roads are not even paved. I mean, it's really. And this bill that just passed cuts out a lot of the Medicaid and Medicare for rural areas. And so I don't know what's going to happen. I just don't know. It's hard to believe that we treat other human beings that way.
And then, you know, what will happen is then the community will have to come together and help people.
Yeah, because you can't just let them die.
Yeah.
You know, one thing when Obama was in there, I think he enacted that deal. It was like a death squad camp or something. Me or you get sick and they say, well, it's going to cost $1 million a year. Well, hey, pull the plug. Use it on a kid.
They do it in other countries.
Yeah. And most of the people are going to say, yeah, I understand. We're going to give you something to keep the pain down, but you know what? You've lived a long time. And we can use this money. And it's right. It's hard to, if it's your loved one, you don't want that to happen, but it's the truth. You have to realize, I asked an old oil guy back in the 70s, I said, how come we can't cure cancer? And he said, Larry, we might be able to, but there's got to be, we're outliving the actuary charts. Got to be a way for people to shuffle off. And I've been thinking about that ever since.
And then you see some of those people that get so sick until they just...
Yeah, the quality of life is no good. When it's quality of life's no good, you're a vegetable. Why are you hanging around? Pull the plug. And in some states, they won't let them pull the plug.
Yeah.
So, I think it's time that, I don't know why we don't have the same voting rights in every state. You can go to Colorado and buy marijuana, but if you cross that line, they're going to arrest you. I mean, why is that? Why ain't everything the same?
And I think that in Texas, you know, Abbott, you know, he kind of vetoed that deal on closing those pot places.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, I think so. You know, they're in special session, but it's just like the gambling. You know, I mean, you go to Oklahoma, you go to Louisiana, and it's all Texas license plates and the parking garages at the casinos. You know, we're losing all that money. Well, you go to Oklahoma, you go to New Mexico, and there's all the, you drive down every street and there's those places that sell marijuana.
Yeah.
Now, being a Texas resident, I've heard that in Oklahoma, you can't just walk in and buy it, but in New Mexico, I think you can. So.
Well, the deal with the gambling, last year Charlie got us the IGT, International Gaming Technology. They run the Texas Lottery. And so they were talking about, could I have some roundtable discussions, pro and con, about casino gambling? And I told them I don't think it'll ever go, because when y'all sold us the lottery, you told us X number of dollars is going to school. It didn't happen. You lied to us. And Texans got a long memory. And as long as the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, he's never put it on the floor for a vote.
Yeah.
Never. And so, and people think there's going to be casinos everywhere. I've looked at Maddie's husband. There's only going to be maybe 4 in the state. It wouldn't be at Billy Bob.
Just like the pari-mutuel gambling at the racetrack.
Yeah.
You know, there's not racetracks in every city.
No.
You know, that out there at Aledo, they had that racetrack they thought was going to be the Class 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
It ended up at Grand Prairie.
Yeah. And it does good. What's his name? The football guy always, Mike Renfro. He's big in the horse business. And Mike used to hustle junkets to Louisiana, because I went on a couple of them. He'd meet you out there at Meacham Field, and they'd fly you over there and put you up, just, you know, as long as you bring some money and gamble. But now, then he started hustling people out at Lone Star Park, but he's got big horses out there. So, yeah, it's kind of, we've got a lot of problems, but as many problems as we got, we're still the best country in the world.
Absolutely. And as long as we can do stuff to honor people and help people, then we're doing our part. And
right.
Our friends out there that help support
right.
Larry's Box
right.
and Larry's Kids, they're doing their part.
That's why I always tell people at the start of the deal, it's just my name up there. It's all of these other people. It's last year there's always a story. Last year there was 3 ladies pulled up in a Uber, and they each gave me a $5 bill, and that was as important as the person that wrote a $10,000 check
That's
to
right.
me. And I tried to pay their Uber deal, but it was already out of their bank account, you know. But they were all very solid that that's all they could afford, and I said, hey, we love it. And I tell people, if you can't afford to give, pray for us.
And you know, there's a parable in the Bible about that. You know, the widow's mite, and you know, that's all she had. But that was as important as a person that's got $1 billion that gives, you know, $10 million to something. But this is from the heart. This is for tax deduction. So
You know, I had a family came to me that the son is 15, had muscular dystrophy, and those people there's no agencies to help. And so we raised some money, and so they came by on a Saturday, and we did a show. Had the son, and the daughter, and then the mother and the father. And so the second week, I said, hey, I got a bunch of money. I'll be over there Saturday. Well, I said, you know, I go to the lunch club deal about noon, so it's 11 o'clock. I said, Mr. Hale, you gonna come over? And he said, oh, Larry, I forgot about you. They're amputating my leg today. That's the father, the only one working in the family. And I said, this is like Job. I mean, what else are we going to take from this family? And the kid, Brandon, we started the show. It was going to start at 9. They got here at 8. Couldn't get him confident enough till 9:30. Then he was good. And we raised some money. But then the father had his leg amputated from the knee down. So I said, give me the address and I'll bring the money over. And he said, just mail it to us. Then 2 days, I was surprised. The mail got there the next day, and he said, we got it, thank you. Richard Carr wrote him a check for $1,000. I mean, we raised some money. And but that family, so now the only working member of the family can't work. The daughter, who had a scholarship to go to a college, couldn't go because she took a $10 an hour job at McDonald's
to help feed the family.
And there's families like that all over, and we don't know about it. So he said, when he called me, the father, he said, you're our last hope. We have nowhere else to turn. And I said, come on, let's. 2 days later, they were on the show. And I said, hey, this family needs help. Don't go out and take your wife out to dinner. Send $100 over to this family. And they had a GoFundMe. We raised about $3,500 on it and $1,500 on the other. So
talk about raising money. Pat Green raised a lot of money.
Oh yeah, he did. You know, Pat office is 50 feet from me.
Yeah.
Right across the parking lot there at the back of his building. I would imagine that his family lost more of one family member. 4 of them, the father, the mother, and the 2 kids. Horrific.
And then to get up there to perform like that.
It's so good to see those country people coming together. Robert Kraft, the New England Patriots, gave $10 million.
And Josh Weathers, another local musician, he
raised about $1.5 million, didn't he?
And she was.
Oh, and enlisted. There's some people gave $150,000. Group out at Lockheed gave $170,000, and
some of these funeral homes are saying, you know, we'll do the cremation free.
That's like our group. We can, for those flood victims, we got 1,100 prayers in 1 hour and 45 minutes. 1,100. It's amazing how Texans. I made a post immediately. We're coming. We're either sending money or driving down there, but we're coming. Yeah. Texas takes care of their own, that's for sure.
We did.
Yeah, but we've always taken care of our own. You know, that reminds me of I always bring this up. I forget who the African American, I think it was Eddie Murphy, and they were going to go rob a casino, or rob something, and he said, you sure we're not in Texas? And he said, no, we're not in Texas, we're in Louisiana. Why? And he said, you know what they do to black people in Texas? But he said, you know, but we take care of our own. African Americans, Hispanics, whatever. That's one thing Texans do. They stand up for each other. And that's a good thing. Of course, all states probably the same way. But we've had so many families affected from those fires out in California and the floods, and the weather this year is taking dead aim at my detail business.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because people say, well, it didn't rain. Well, when it's 40% chance there's nobody going to pay $300 to get a car detailed, and it's thinking it's going to rain. So I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. So I just try to keep getting sponsors to keep my deal afloat.
And you do a good job because you have such a megaphone out there.
Oh, yeah.
With those sponsors, I mean, they're going to get some business.
That Termite King, he just joined, and there was 4 people that used to use him, and he immediately got him reinstated. Oh, yeah. There's nowhere you can get for $1,500 a year. I blast you out there all day long. A possible, every day there's 145,000 views on that group. That's 5,000 views an hour.
That's a lot of views.
Oh man, 100 views a minute, solid for 28 days. But we put interesting stuff. We've proven that people are interested in their history of their community, and we talk about it. We don't allow cussing or bullying or anything, and people feel secure and they can say what they want to say. And I always put, be true to your school, and because we don't have any more. When I went to school and you went to school, there was school spirit.
Yeah.
There was city spirit. Them are fighting words. I'm a Fort Worth boy. Richland High School, or you Haltom, we fought every year.
You know, I think some of that had to do with the way the Star Telegram was back then.
Back in the day.
Because, you know, you go to the sports page on Saturday morning, and it's this high school and this high school. That's what they did, you know.
And the boxing was definitely.
Yeah.
Eamon Carter, we kept that thing. I fought 9 years. I fought for Panther Boys Club, and then Lon got me in Sheriff's Club. Then I fought open. But I mean, that was an outlet for you to. It was really good. I mean, it didn't cost you any money, or it was something. It was really something. That was back when the newspaper cared about the city.
Yep.
Now we don't even write about the city anymore. So
I don't even know. Do they still have home delivery?
I don't think it's home delivery. I think they mail it to you, and they only print it like 3 or 4 days a week.
And by the time you get any news, it's
it's history.
Yeah.
You know,
we're used to instant news.
You know, one year last year, the year before, we had Wes Turner, or the guy that Star Telegram? We had him on, and he said, I asked him, I said, how long for the newspapers printed? He said, oh, Chicago and the Detroit, New York Post, they'll keep doing it, but the Fort Worth Star Telegram, it'll be all
digital
online in 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
And that's like, how would you like to be in the school book business? By the time the book's printed, it's ancient history. So they put a laptop at everybody's desk.
Yeah.
So if there's an earthquake in China, in 1 second, you know it. So technology is it's just evolved so much, it's unbelievable. It's hard to imagine where we'll be in another 10 or 20 years.
Especially with AI.
The guy that I pay rent to here called me at home one night and said, hey, you got a water leak down there. And I said, what are you talking about? Well, that commode over there, the flapper thing. And so I said, how do you know that? And he's on his phone, it's got an app telling him. He's got a bunch of rent property, and he said, well, you're already gone, aren't you? And I said, yeah, I've been gone 5 hours. He said, well, I'll turn it off. He never even left his house and turned the water off. I said, you got to be kidding me. And he said, no, and it tells me the PSI and all of that stuff. I had no clue you could do that.
I didn't know you could do that.
Oh, yeah. He said, every piece of rental property, my home, when we're on vacation, if there's some kind of problem with something, I could go on my phone and turn it off. He said, I can kill the power at your building when I'm in Colorado. I said, you're kidding me. So I had a guy in here from AT&T the other day, and I said, so what do you do just get a new phone. He said, find one you like. He said, they change so often. He said, from the original telegraph to the first iPhone, he said, we've come that far again 20 times.
Mm.
From the original telegraph.
And just think what they've got today, we won't see it for 4 or 5 years, but it'll boggle our minds whenever we see it.
I had a guy that worked for the CIA that told me, he said, the United States records every cell phone conversation in the world. And I said, you got to be kidding me. And he said, there's not a person listening, but there's words, that keywords like bomb or terrorist or something, then a person actually listens. But we record every cell phone conversation in the world. How in the heck do we have the technology to do that? Yes, Larry. Okay, can we call you on Monday? That I don't have my book with me. We don't detail on Saturday, so can I call you on Monday and set up a time or a day? Okay, your name is Mrs. Stewart. Well, I can call you tomorrow, in fact, after we do our boxing and our birthday party. And your phone number? Okay? Okay? What kind of vehicle have you got, Lisa? Year? Toyota? What year? 2018. I will call you. You want me to call you tomorrow or you want me to call you Monday? Okay, and the way we work, we need it by 7:30 or 8. It gets too hot, you know, later. And it takes about 4 or 5 hours. It'll be ready about 1 or 1:30. Okay, I will call you Monday then. All right, bye. But yeah, everything's changed so much, and it continues to change.
I noticed there was a picture that you had to take off about an airplane or something.
Yeah, that was.
I've got a whole bunch of pictures I've taken at air shows and stuff, and I need to send them to you so you can have
Okay.
them.
Yeah, that. In fact, I researched that. That was sent to me by a guy that takes pictures out there. And so I said, I'll take it. I mean, the guy that said something, actually a guy I went to school with, the lady said, well, I'm not even sure that's my picture. It might have been a, what do you call it, a domain, or where it's, because I'm sure there's more than one person took a picture of that plane, those two planes. But yeah, that's right, you take pictures there.
Yes, every once in a while they let me go out right on the runway.
Really?
Where they're having a launch, and so, you know, I've got those pictures where you can see the pilot right there in the cockpit.
Wow.
So,
what is the plane at the end of the runway by Ridgemore Mall? What is that?
that's Fat Albert, and that's the C-130 that is Blue Angels plane that carries all their equipment and stuff when they travel around, and that's just an old one that they have on display there. So,
what year was it that the lead plane went down and all of them followed it?
I'm not sure, but that was, I don't know if that was it the Thunderbirds or the Blue Angels?
Well, it was one of them, but why did that happen? Did they ever figure out why the front guy got?
I don't know.
They all followed each other right to the ground.
You know, one Sunday morning they were having a reserve deal out there, and I saw an airplane. There was two F-16s. I was going on I-30 by Ridgemore Mall, and this F-16 came by real fast, and they don't ever come by that fast. But I just glanced over there, and there was another F-16 coming about where that roller rink is going into Lockheed.
Yeah.
It came here, and then I saw just one take off and smoke. And this guy that was coming from the side, apparently he got discombobulated or something, and he inverted and crashed right into the ground and killed him, and there was a guy riding it was a two-seater. And
it was out near Silver Wheels? It was in the residential part?
No, he crashed on the runway.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. And it was just a pile of air.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a bunch of old pictures from B-25 or B-36 ran off the runway out there back in the 40s. I talked to a guy one year, but he wouldn't do an interview, and he was one of the guys that was the gate guard at Carswell. And I mean, there was a lot of people tried to get in there that were spies or whatever during the war. And he told me those stories, and they would hold them, and somebody would fly in. He said they'd always be from San Antonio, and they'd take them off. We don't know where they took them, but we'd keep them locked up. And so there was actually German spies here. And they caught one guy off the coast of somewhere, and he fessed up at the end and didn't want to do the deed, and went to the FBI or the police and said, "Hey, I'm really a spy and we're supposed to do this." They said, "Yeah, get out of here." And he said, "No, look, come with me." And they dug up the money out there, and they didn't give him a deal. They put him in prison. But there's 4 or 5 of them. They were supposed to blow up something, anything.
And with all these drones, they get out of NASJRB, they got a lot of these drones coming in, encroaching their space, and the former skipper said that they had the technology to take those drones over and land them. But, I don't know if that works, how it works or anything, but, don't want those drones flying around, especially around those aircraft and stuff.
Did they ever figure out what those big drones were when Biden was leaving office?
No.
And it was still happening when Trump took over. That he had them checked out, but we never were told anything.
And the drone stuff in the war in Ukraine, that's a big part of that.
Oh, no.
That technology's coming a long way.
They operate those drones from the United States.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Technology, they can pull over a house, and it's unbelievable. And I was listening to when Obama and them, when they thought that compound where they actually got bin Laden, they gave him 3 options. They said, we can just fly over it with a drone, blow the whole thing up. But Obama's the one that said, no, we need to make sure that us saying that, and then he comes up and he's alive, that's worse. And so they sent the SEALs in, and that helicopter actually crashed in the deal, and they still carried it out without a hitch.
Yeah, because they had that other helicopter.
Yeah.
But I think they had the capability of destroying that helicopter because there was some technology that
They did destroy it in the movie that Zero Dark 30.
Yeah.
But I've researched that. It was those women that were in that, they called them it was the guy that ran it. It was his son, his son's name group, but it was all women. And they went to Clinton. They said Clinton had the opportunity 4 or 5 times for sure to kill him and didn't do it. One time they knew bin Laden was in this house, but there was a mosque next to it, and he didn't want to, in case they blew up a bunch of people there. But George Bush also had the opportunity, and they didn't do it.
Sometimes they just aren't. They don't have the stomach for it.
Well, they said that there was when the presidents come in, they have all these other priorities, and the guy that ran that group said it's hard to imagine a guy that lives in a cave in Afghanistan has the capability of taking down 2 of the largest buildings in the United States, but he did it. And they said they told them it was going to happen. They said, who was the guy, Saddam Hussein, he couldn't figure out a vehicle to get it here. They could make, and so that group said, well, bin Laden got him here. They found a vehicle and didn't even have to go buy anything.
No, just
get on the plane. Yeah, so I can't believe we hadn't been hit again, really. It's hard to believe that we hadn't been hit again.
Our security must be pretty good.
Must be.
Because it'd be really easy to do a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah. I'm surprised they haven't, seriously, because Trump, they said that Iranian guy put a hit out on Trump.
$40 million or something.
And you take a guy that's, doctor says you got 3 months to live. All you got to do is get close enough with one of them vests on. It's hard to fight against somebody that, it's real easy to radicalize them. for years I tried to figure out why. It's those people have nothing. They have nothing. They don't have a car.
And from the time they're born, they get brainwashed.
Yeah, and they do what I interviewed a guy about 2 years ago that was from Pakistan, and I said, so why did you come over here? And he said, my great-grandfather built rifles to fight. My grandfather built rifles. My dad built rifles, and that's what I was going to do, and I just left. And he's a teacher, a professor at UTA. Good guy. He said, you get no opportunity. Whatever your father did is what you do. That's already from a little kid. Well, do I get to go to school? No, you don't get to do nothing. You're going to build guns like I do. We're still going to eat beans out of the same pot that we've been cooking them out of for 100 years. So those people that have nothing, even the poorest people in the United States, at least most of them have something. They have nothing. So I think it's easy to radicalize them, and it's just hard to believe that we have some parts of the world people live. This guy told me the worst day of a homeless person here is 10 times better than the best day for most of the people over there, the kids.
Yeah.
And he said it's horrible existence. And so, you know, when you stop and look at I watched that Black Hawk Down the other day. All those buildings are bombed out, the road. I mean, there's cars turned upside down, bodies. It's not like we live here. It's hard to believe. And they told me, this one guy that was a psychologist, he said the reason bin Laden did what he did was to change the mindset of the regular Americans, to force the government to get out of that war. Don't go back over there. That's what he wanted. He didn't want us over there. That's when he declared war on Saudi Arabia, because they allowed the Americans to come over there. And that's supposedly holy ground, and his family was billionaires. So, and then we complain, you see all these people want to defund the police. Can you imagine? We've got great police officers.
We do.
Fire department, police, first responders. It's just hard to imagine that life without them. Back in the old West, you know.
And we got to always have their back, because they've got ours.
Oh yeah, they've got ours.
Even in our city government, you know, we have to support those people in our city government that really have the back of the police.
Right, because, you know, and we have to support our city leaders. Some people get upset with different mayors or city council, and I always tell them, you have to be the mayor or city council for all of the citizens, not just the people on the river, west side or north side, east side. I mean, you gotta straddle that fence.
Because the decision that let's say Michael Crane makes, along with others that affect people outside his district, that's the way they all do, you know. So it's not just his district that matters, or Carlos's district. It's everybody's district.
Right.
That matters, because they're voting that it impacts those people or everybody in the city.
Right. I think we've got good government. I really do.
And
I was glad to see Deborah Peoples get elected again.
And that city hall is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful building.
And they really did get a deal on that. I've talked to these real estate people, and they said that was a deal. You know, my old stockbroker years and years ago, when they started building that Pier 1 building, and he'd come down from New York, and he said, that'll be the end of Pier 1. Whenever they go from leasing 5 floors out of a building to building a monster like that, that's the end of them. And it did. It was the end of them.
And Chesapeake came in, and the things happened, and
then the city bought it next, or
I think they bought it after Chesapeake. Well, you know, the guy that started Chesapeake, he got in trouble and killed himself.
Well, did he really kill himself?
Well, he left it. I read that he'd left the federal courthouse, and he was going, 100 miles an hour when he crashed into an bridge embankment. So
yeah, but did they ever really find the body? I mean, somebody said that they wasn't. sure that it supposedly went in the water or something, and they never have found the guy.
I don't know.
I don't know either. They said he had a couple of sports teams, and
He was riding high.
oh yeah, he spent a lot of money, and that's those oil guys. That, of course, they're known around here for always doing that. But yeah, kind of a weird deal. But now I think we're back on kilter. That everybody's trying to. But gas is still high, boy. And I tell you what, Trump told Walmart to eat them prices. They didn't eat nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, a little box of fruit was $8.90. I said, you got to be kidding me. You buy a whole watermelon for that? No, you can't.
Not with the tariff.
It's unbelievable. But I agree, our automakers 5 years ago, if they sent a car to Japan, it was like 25% tariff. So why can't we charge them 25%? Yep. There ought to just be he should have just said, hey, whatever you're charging us, that's what we're going to charge you.
Just make it level
even.
All around.
Yeah. If you charge us 10%, that's all we're going to charge you. But that war, he said, I'll end that war before I become president. It's still, Putin's gone nuts. But at least we hadn't give Ukraine, or that I know of. He used to waltz over here and walk away with billions. It's unbelievable. And now that auto pen problem, who was really running the country, and is Michelle Obama and Barack Obama really getting a divorce?
I don't know. I saw something the other day. I don't know.
I think they're just messing with people.
Yeah, I think it's just all this publicity. Let's look over here for a while. You look over there, and what are we going to do in this?
They're
stuff?
still talking about Biden. Hell, he's gone. Do it like George Bush. He just left.
We just need to have people up there that take the whole country and do everything they can, not for this political party or this political party, but for the good of our people and our country.
I don't think they've done that in years.
No.
And now Musk, I like that idea. He's starting another party. That's good. I mean, those people, I think they're all dishonest, really. I mean, all of them, both sides.
They'll go up there with nothing and come back multimillionaires.
And we know what they make. It's public knowledge. They make a couple $100,000 a year to be a senator. And you can check all of ours here. They're all multi. Well, how'd you get that money? They're so brazen, they just report it. I mean, it's been going on so long. I've always said when they close them doors, I think they're shaking each other's hands. Well, we got them again.
We like those old main event wrestlers from the old days.
Yeah, it's already been.
Ride to the match with
my grandmother used to think that was the real deal. I said, Grandma, they already know who's going to win before they get here. I ain't real sure boxing didn't go that way. But anyway, well, I'm going to call it a day. We've talked a pretty good while.
We did. I think we covered just about every subject.
Solved all the world problems.
Yep. Well, just remember today is Horace Carson's
I'm going to post
birthday.
some stuff when I get home, and I will see you at Rex's tomorrow morning.
That's good.
Okay, brother.
Very good to see you.
Good to see you.